Pythagorean theorem is a right triangle, and on those right triangles, these two sides here that form the right angle, and it also forms the letter L, so what are those called? All right, those are called the legs, and what letters do we use for the legs? All right, so A and B, and again, it does not matter which one is A, which one is B, just as long as the legs are A and B. So A and B are the legs. And then what is C called? Hypotenuse. So our C is always that opposite the right angle, and it is called the hypotenuse. And we are using the formula today, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Same thing as yesterday. But today, I will give you the hypotenuse, and I will give you one of these legs, and we're going to do some work to solve for that. And give you guys some time to copy that down. I'm going to say on your Chromebooks, I should only see your calculator, and that is it. If you have anything else pulled up, please change that. All right, so are we ready to do some examples? I'm going to say, Emma, are you still writing? All right, so our examples today are going to look really similar to what we did yesterday. You are going to see a right triangle, and you are going to be given two of the three sides. But if we look today, the missing side, is this a leg or is this a hypotenuse? All right, so this is a leg because it's part of the L. It's part of that right angle. So on this one, we have to find a leg length instead of a hypotenuse. So do you guys want to call this A or B? Does it matter? All right. Typically, whenever I'm solving for a leg, I always say I call it A, just because sometimes people get B's confused with sixes. Like if you don't have good handwriting, sometimes B's and sixes look alike. So I always just say my missing leg is A. You can make your missing leg B. That's totally up to you. So now, which one is the hypotenuse? The 13. So this is a leg here, this is a leg here, so this is going to be our B, and this is your C. The hypotenuse has to be C. You can't change that. So when we plug that in, that's what we're going to use. And so we are going to use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we're going to plug in what we know. We don't know a length for A. It's our missing side, so we're just going to leave that a squared. Now, what am I going to plug in for B? 12 squared, and c squared, 13. All right, now do we know those numbers? You have a calculator if you need them, but let's do our exponents. What is 12 squared? 144. And what about 13 squared? All right, what do you guys think up to this point? Okay, I like the way you're thinking. All right, so think about whenever we solved equations back in like August and September. We always said we liked our variables on the left, and if it didn't have a variable, we moved it to the other side, right? So we are trying, this A is a letter, This 144, we don't need it on this side. How do we move a positive 144 to the other side? Becomes a negative. And so if we subtract that, what is 169 minus 144? $25. All right, so we are now to the final step. We're trying to figure out what number squared is 25. Most of you probably know this one in your head, right? All right, if you don't know the answer's 5, how do we do that? We take the square root of 25 and we get an answer of 5. So we plug in what we know. Today we know one leg and one hypotenuse. And then we have to move that number to the other side by making it a negative, which requires us to subtract. And then we get 25, and then we take the square root. Now just help me out, especially we had a lot of people gone yesterday, so let's just take a look at the calculator. How do you type in the square root of 25? What do we hit first? All right, where's that located?
Underneath the LOG.
All right, underneath the LOG, it's right beside the 1, right? So we type in square root, and then we're taking the square root of 25, correct? And then we hit equals, and it tells us the answer is 5. Now, if we have decimals today, we're still going to round to the nearest tenth, one place after. But let's try another one. All right, so our missing side is down here at the bottom. Is that a leg or a hypotenuse? All right, it's a leg. Do you guys want it to be A or B? Sure. All right, now which one is going to be my B? 8, because it's my leg, and then my C is going to be my hypotenuse, my 10. So we can plug in what we know to A squared plus B squared equals C squared. All right, we don't know what A is. All right, what am I going to put in for 8 squared? Or B squared? 8 squared, what about C squared? All right, so then we just have to do our exponents for 8 squared and 10 squared. 8 squared we know is 64. What's 10 squared? 100. All right, I want to make sure everybody's doing all right. I don't want to go too fast. Is everybody doing okay? All right. So if we look at that last example, once we got to this point, our whole entire job is to get A by itself. So how do I get rid of that plus 64? All right, if I move it over to the right, and if you guys want to write this step like this, what happens to that positive 64 when I move it over? Negative 64. What is 100 minus 64? 36. And so to get rid of that squared, I want to find out what number squared is 36 by taking the square root. And what is the square root of 36? Very good. Now, if you guys can go from this step to this step, do you think that's okay? I'm going to say, I'm okay. If you guys want to go from this step right to that step and do the calculator part, not writing what you're putting in the calculator, that's okay. All right, you guys got to tell me what you're thinking. You're very quiet today. You like it? Still like it? All right, so those came out to whole numbers. What do you think my answer is going to be on the next one? It's going to be a decimal. So let's take a look. All right, I drew this triangle a little bit different. All right, so if I take a look at my missing side, is it part of the right angle? And I'll say, my right angle is up here this time, but is it still part of the leg? Absolutely, so that's going to be my A. Now, which number is the other leg? All right, the 17 is the other part of that right angle. It is the other leg, so this is my B, and my hypotenuse is 20. If you're missing a leg, the hypotenuse is always the longest side, so the bigger number is always your C. All right, so let's plug in what we know. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. What will you write when you replace those, what you know, with numbers? Well, what do I write? All right, A squared plus 17 squared equals 20 squared. What do you guys think? Sorry, I let my 2's get changed. All right, so you guys have a calculator. To do 17 squared, you have to take 17 times 17. What does that give me? 289. I like that answer. Now what about 20 times 20? 400. All right, still solving these the exact same way. I want to get A by itself, so how do I move this plus 289? Move it to the right and it becomes a negative or a minus 289. All right, you have calculators. Let's keep working. What is 400 minus 289? 111. All right, so on this one, we do have to take the square root of 111. So this is where you guys need your calculators. Let's get them out. All right, so if we go to the calculator, we clear everything out. The square root of 111. You should get a decimal, right? Okay, so we are rounding to the nearest tenth. So let's look at that, 10.5. All right, what is the next number? Tells us how to round, which is a 3. Does the 3 tell us to keep it 10.5 or to change it to 10.6? All right, we keep it at 10.5. Well, I am sorry. Luckily it's water and it'll dry and it'll all be okay. All right, do you guys have any questions? Now, just like we did yesterday, some of our questions had decimals. So let's do one example that has decimals for the side. So make sure you have your calculators because you're going to need them. All right, can you guys see that still? I'll try to write it a little darker. All right, so your right angle is again up here at the top. All right, that looks a little bit better, doesn't it? I'm okay with you trying it by yourself. Just remember when you're doing the square to use your calculator. Do you want me to hide the screen for you while I work it out? Okay, I'll hide the screen for you guys. Or I'll at least freeze it so that way you can still see the triangle. I'm going to work it out and then I will show you my results. And remember, do we round during the problem or at the very end? Oh, we round at the very end. Does anybody need more time?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you guys to take a look at this. All right, what do you think about this first part? A squared plus 5.1 squared equals 7.2 squared? Yes? All right, so then you have to take 5.1 times 5.1 and 7.2 times 7.2. Remember, we do not round until the very end, so we're working with that. 5.1 squared is 26.01. 7.2 squared is 51.84. How'd you guys do on those numbers? All right, and then the 26.01 does need to move to the other side, so it becomes a negative. What'd you get when you subtracted those two numbers? What do you think about that? 25.83? Then what's our last step? Square root of 25.83. Now, when I got this, this is what I got. 5.0823223 and a bunch of other stuff. But I only want one place. So we have 5.0. The 8 tells us to round up, so I should have it as 5.1. How'd you do? You guys think you can do some more of these on your own? No, so your assignment is on Canvas, but if you did not finish the assignment from yesterday, what should you do first? Assignment from yesterday needs to be done first. But if you're done with that, go ahead and start on today's.